My name is Brad Sant. I serve as Executive Director for the Clearinghouse and also as Vice President of Safety for the American Road and Transportation Builders Association. We are very pleased to have two excellent speakers with us here today, but before we turn the time to them, just a couple of preliminary things to let you know about. First of all, these Clearinghouse webinars are provided at no cost through a cooperative agreement we have with the Federal Highway Administration, and as such, we like to keep track of how many people are participating, and we do that by those that are logged on. However, for those of you who may be in a conference room or viewing multiple people at one site, we'd simply ask that you can email us the number of people that visited or watched this webinar from your site so we can keep track of those. We'd appreciate it greatly. Secondly, as you'll see, we have professional development hours that are available. The links to do an electronic online form to get those hours is available here. We're showing you that link, and that'll be repeated again at the end of the webinar for those of you interested in professional development hours. So let's go ahead and begin. We're pleased here today to have as our first speaker Hari Kala, who is the Federal Highway Administration's MUTCD team leader, so the authority on the manual. In his current position, he's responsible for developing and issuing Federal Highway Administration regulations, policies, standards, and guidance for all traffic control devices, including traffic signs, pavement markings, and traffic signals. Prior to his current position, Mr. Kala served as team leader and transportation specialist in FHWA's Office of Safety. Before coming to the Federal Highway Administration, he worked for the New York State Department of Transportation for 8 years. He holds a master's degree in civil engineering from the State University of New York at Buffalo and is a licensed professional engineer in the state of New York. Mr. Kala is joined by, Ken?
No, Ken Wood.
Yes, I'm sorry, brain hiccup. By Ken Wood, also of the Federal Highway Administration. And Ken is presently the Traffic Operations Engineer in the Operations Technical Service team at Federal Highway Administration's Resource Center. He is also a team member of the MUTCD and is responsible specifically for Part 6 of the manual. He also is involved in Federal Highway Administration's programs dealing with work zone safety and mobility. Previously, Ken worked for 30 years with the Illinois Department of Transportation and working in various aspects of traffic engineering, eventually holding the position of the State Traffic Operations Engineer. He's a member of the Illinois DOT Work Zone Safety Committee and worked extensively on work zone traffic control issues. He has his Bachelor's of Science in Civil Engineering from the University of Illinois and a Master's degree in Public Administration from Sangamon State University. So welcome to have Ken Wood and Hari Kala with us. So we'll turn the time over to Hari.
Thank you, Brad, and good afternoon and welcome from Washington, D.C. I'm really excited to be here to talk to you about the MUTCD. The way we're going to do this presentation today, that I will talk about some of the key changes, some general changes, revisions to the MUTCD, and then I'll turn it over to Ken Wood, and Ken Wood will talk about in detail the changes to the Part 6 of the MUTCD, and hopefully at the end we'll have plenty of time for questions. Let's talk about some of the key changes we are making in this, or we are adding in the 2009 edition of the MUTCD. Before I talk about the changes, I just want to brief you a little bit about the process we used to develop this MUTCD. We started this process, the formal process, it's about 2 years ago. The MUTCD is a part of federal regulations, so to change MUTCD, we have to follow the federal rulemaking process. We started formally this process about 2 years ago in January 2008. We published our proposal in Federal Register and for public comments. And the public comment period was open for 7 months. The public comment period ended July 31st, 2008. We received a tremendous amount of number of comments. Over 15,000 individual comments received on the docket with respect to our proposal. And we reviewed and analyzed each and every one of those comments, and based on that analysis and review, we published the final rule on December 16, 2009, and the effective date for this 2009 edition of the MUTCD is January 15th, 2010, just a few days ago. Now, when you talk about the MUTCD, the safety and operational efficiencies are always the key foundation piece of the MUTCD. That's why we do the MUTCD. That's why we have MUTCD. But if you look at the 2009 edition, there are some 4 key themes which I want to point out. The first is uniformity. If you look at the changes we are proposing and couple that with this requirement that all the standards in the MUTCD also have to be standard in the state MUTCD, it has gone a long way to achieve the goal of uniformity across the country. Also, this concept of complete street, we are trying to emphasize that the streets and roads are for all road users. They're not just for the cars. So the provisions we have proposed in this, we have included in this MUTCD, such as the hawk signals, pedestrian clearance time at the traffic signals, they will go a long way to help the other road users. The third theme is the aging population with the sign retroreflectivity rule and this new sign designs and which requires now bigger and brighter signs. Also, our effort to make the message simpler and more uniform will help our aging population. And then lastly, the innovation. There are a lot of new technology, new concept, new application. They are well tested, well researched, but we are adding a lot of new innovations in this MUTCD to help our agencies and practitioners. One of the other key change we have made in this 2009 edition of the MUTCD is the way we describe and we use compliance dates. First of all, we have simplified. Now, every compliance date has a specific date. In the previous edition, we used to have 10 years, 15 years, or 5 years. We removed all those and we put the specific dates for each and every compliance dates. We have also, at this time, in this new edition, we have added only 11 new compliance dates. And also, all the compliance dates are now in the table rather than having the list of the compliance dates we put in the table format. The way we interpret the compliance dates has also changed. Now, if there is no compliance date for any given specific device, that means that the existing device can stay in place till the end of their service life. Before, we used to say that if there is no compliance date, then after 2 years you have to bring the new devices in place who are MUTCD compliant. But now, if there is no compliance date, the existing device can stay in place at the end of the service life. So that's a very big and key change. 2 years, I think it was about 4 years ago, we did this revised the federal regulation, and we defined the term open to public travel. We have always said the MUTCD applies to all roads open to public travel, but we never defined that term. 4 years ago, we added that the open to public travel means that all roads where public is invited or is allowed to travel without any access control. We have added justification, and we have also added the clarification to make it clear in the MUTCD. So you will see all across the MUTCD, we are telling the open to public travel means that wherever the public is invited or public is allowed to travel. And that means also private roads, the toll roads, the service roads, the ring roads around the sports arenas or shopping centers. But from this definition, the parking areas and driving aisles are now not included. So the MUTCD does not apply to the parking lots and their driving aisles. For a long time, we have had the metric units as well as English units in the MUTCD. In 2009 edition, we have removed the metric values from the text, figures, and tables. But what we have done is we have added an appendix which has the conversion table to help the practitioners who are still interested in the metric values. I hope and we hope that this will improve the readability of this new document. The other formatting change, couple of formatting changes we have made. Now the paragraphs are numbered. So for each paragraph there is a number, and that will improve the way people reference the MUTCD document. And also all the guidance statements are now in italic font. So that will also help the readability of this document. The definitions, all the definitions are now in the part 1. And that's this, you see on the screen, the section is 1A13. That's where all the definitions are now placed. Before, the definitions were scattered all over the MUTCD in different parts. We took all this definition and put it in the part 1. Hopefully that will improve. It will be easier now to find the definitions. We have, as you see on the screen, we have added 70 new definitions, and the approximately 35 existing definitions have been revised. Also, the definition or the meaning of the standards, guidance, options, and support, we have relocated from the introduction to the section 1A13. And that's where all the definitions are. So we have removed and put the definition of these headings in the definition section. And also the standard, we clarified the standard definition now. We have added a sentence, and you see that underlined in red. The standard statement shall not be modified or compromised based on engineering judgment or engineering study. That's based on our long-term interpretation of how the standards should be defined. And that's how the standards are differ from the guidance statements. Now moving on to the specific parts of the MUTCD. We have made quite a significant changes in the organization of the part 2. As you can see, we have added a number of new chapters. We have added a new chapter on toll roads, a new chapter on preferential and managed lanes, and a new chapter on the changeable message signs. And also we pulled out some of the other information from other chapters and created a new chapters. And so you see that there are a whole lot more chapters in the part 2 than it used to be before. Hopefully it will organize information well, and it will make it easier to find the information. Specifically on the changeable message sign, we have added a lot more information on that particular chapter. The other key change we have made to the part 2 with respect to the overhead signs is that there used to be a standard, there used to be a guidance statement that the all overhead signs have to be eliminated unless the engineering study or judgment can, you can use the engineering study to prove that the retroreflective level of the guide signs will perform adequately. We have removed the guidance statement now. So because if you remember, we did this new rule on sign retroreflectivity. So we believe that the minimum levels of sign retro will provide the adequate visibility. However, we have we kept the similar guidance statement on the chapter on the freeway and expressway signs, because we think the freeways and expressway, the overhead signs there need added attention, and the practitioners still need to look at the need for the external illumination for those signs. This is a very significant change for the diagrammatic signs. This is a new requirement that all the diagrammatic signs need to have this, what we call this arrow per lane design. Before, there used to be a one thick arrow with the lane markings within the shaft of the arrow. It was based on the older driver research. We think this arrow per lane design works much better, and it's much easier to understand. However, we understand that it will create a significant economic burden on the agency. So what we have done, that we said this requirement only applies to the new facilities, or the facilities where going through the significant reconstruction. All the existing signs can remain in place till the end of their service life. There is a new requirement for the left exits, that you need to now use this left plaque, the yellow left plaque, for all the left exits. It's a key safety requirement, a new requirement in the MUTCD, and we have added the 5-year compliance date for this requirement. The left exit usually violate the driver expectations, So I think we think that it's very important to have the specific message for left exits. There's a whole lot more new information on the toll plazas, managed lanes, and preferential lanes. Based on the research, we have added a lot of new requirements, new guidance, and new options for these facilities. In fact, we have created a new chapters in the Part 2, Part 3, and I think also in the Part 4 of the MUTCD. We are introducing this new color purple for the ETC facilities. And I think as you probably have noticed, a lot of agencies are going in the direction of using more and more managed lanes to improve the operational efficiencies of their facilities. So our goal is to provide the uniformity, and I think our proposal or our sections or provisions in the new MUTCD will help us reach that goal. As I talked about the purple color, we are introducing similar color for the pavement marking as well. So, and also there is a new chapter in the markings part. This is chapter 3E for the toll plazas. And now we have this new option of using the purple color for markings as well. In the signals, there's a new requirement that for all the new traffic signal faces, the minimum indicators you can use is 12 inches. There are some exceptions for the 8 inches, but for all the new installations, this is a new requirement, 12-inch signal heads. Also, we have added lots and lots of new information and a lot of new recommendations for the higher speed facilities for traffic signals. And that covers the number of signal heads, the placements, and the design. And we also encourage people to look at the lower speed facilities to provide similar type of design. But for the high speed facilities, those are the guidance statements or recommendations. And we have this new chapter 4F, and we are adding this new device, what we call is the pedestrian hybrid beacons, or a lot of people know them as HAWK signals. And these are for mid-block marked pedestrian crossings. There's a lot of research done on these devices, and they show a remarkable improvement on this, having no HAWK signal. Again, this is a new option. If the agency want to make use of this option, they can. And there are similarly a new device for the emergency vehicle as well. In the Part 7, school zones, we have reorganized that part. We have deleted a lot of duplicated provisions, and then now this new requirement is the fluorescent yellow-green background color will be required for the school zones. We have provided a lot of clarification and cleared up the language on this different terminology we use, such as school zones, school areas, reduced speed limit zones, etc. And hopefully that will clear up some of the confusion. And also we deleted information on the student safety patrols because we don't think those are the traffic control devices. On the railroads, we have combined Part 8 and Part 10. There used to be two separate parts. One is Part 8 was on railroad crossing and Part 10 was on the light rail. We think there's a lot of duplication, so we have combined them into the one new part, single Part 8 for highway rail and highway LRT grade crossings. And the key change in the Part 8 is that now all the passive highway rail grade crossings will require either yield or stop sign. The default is yield, but in certain circumstances, you will have to use stop sign. And now I'm going to turn it over to Ken Wood, and he'll talk about the Part 6. Ken?
Thank you. While Ken is transferring over there, just a couple of people have asked about questions. We are taking questions. You can ask those questions. If you look in your upper left part of your screen, you'll note there's a little icon. It looks like a conversation bubble. Go ahead and ask your questions by clicking on that logo. We'll answer them at the end of the webinar. And we'll leave about a half hour for questions, and if we don't get through all of them, we'll provide other means to get those answers. So go ahead and you can begin asking questions, but we won't get to them until the end. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon. Harry went briefly over a lot of the changes that were in the other parts of the manual. I'm going to focus on Part 6 and go through a little deeper into some of the changes. We didn't make a lot of substantial changes in Part 6 this time, didn't introduce a lot of new concepts. We did focus on more clarification of existing provisions, adding some standards to hopefully eliminate some problems that were brought to our attention in the manual itself, I guess, in the last edition. I'll go through it chapter by chapter and just kind of hit the summary of some of the highlights of the changes that we have made. Chapter 6A is just the general part of Part 6, and we added a paragraph basically recognizing the possible benefits of using ITS systems and components in work zones. These systems are becoming more and more common. The manual should react to those type of systems that are available out there, and we want to at least put a mention in the manual to have people think about them when they're designing temporary traffic control plans for the projects. Chapter 6B contains the fundamental principles of temporary traffic control. We went through and first we renumbered all the fundamental principles. They weren't numbered before. Thought it'd make it easier to reference the fundamental principles. But then one of the other changes in the manual, we went through and numbered every paragraph in the complete manual so that the numbering of these weren't quite as critical as we thought they would be. But that change, I think, is going to make using the MUTCD a lot easier. As you're talking with others, you can reference an exact paragraph. But anyway, the fundamental principle we did, as we were going through here, we did try to add some more emphasis on the importance of recognizing the mobility of road users through the work zones. Not to defer from or to take away anything from the safety of the road users and the workers in the work zones, but you can't really, those two, mobility and safety, are really tied together in work zones, and we wanted to at least mention and highlight some of the thinking and planning that should be done to minimize mobility impacts. That's an emphasis area with FHWA and the recent work zone safety and mobility final rule that we've been implementing or working toward implementing through the agencies. Chapter 6C, we added some emphasis and some text, I guess, to emphasize the importance of developing temporary traffic control plans for planned special events. Any event that inhibits or takes place on the roadway within the right-of-way has an impact on traffic, on road users, and we wanted to be sure that the temporary traffic control plans are being developed for those planned special events, as just like a construction work zone or maintenance work zone. We also added some language to clarify the flexibility for determining sign spacing. Table 6C-1 in the Part 6 is the chart that has the sign spacing in there for the signs to be put in the advanced warning area as you're approaching a work zone. There's specific distances in there depending on the approach speed of vehicles. There had been a lot of questions about how much flexibility is there to move those to fit field conditions, so we wanted to add some text. And the underlying sentence here has been added. Basically, the distances contained are approximate, are intended for guidance purposes only, and should be applied with engineering judgment. These distances should be adjusted for field conditions, if necessary, by increasing or decreasing the recommended distances. So that hopefully will enable the practitioner to apply the principles of the MUTCD with a little bit more field practical experience, I guess. Added some more guidance on short tapers. The short taper, as you're approaching a flagger in a two-lane operation, or two-way, one-lane operation with flagger control. The short taper was a 100-foot maximum prior to this. We added a 50 to 100-foot range, so there is a minimum now. We also added guidance that there should be a downstream taper in this operation. So if you're running two-way traffic on a single lane, on the downstream past the work, you should really use the downstream taper. And again, it's a short taper with a 50 to 100-foot range. That's reflected in Table 6C-3, where the 50-foot minimum has been added. In Section 6C10, there's been an option for allowing self-regulating traffic through a one-lane constriction. But we wanted to go ahead and clarify that a little bit with adding some text that says if the workspace is short, relatively short, and there's adequate sight distance, so a motorist approaching from the bottom of the screen here can determine what an adequate gap is on vehicles approaching from the top of the screen and can make a decision on when they can pass the work operation. Works well on low-volume roads. One thing we do stress in this is that the practitioner, the people that are out there should monitor this situation and use this only if it continues to be work effectively. If you're running into problems or if there are problems with people finding acceptable gaps to pass, just like any other operation, I guess, then you really should go to a flagger-controlled operation where you have a flagger that has positive control of the traffic as they're entering the work zone or the work area. Section 6C11, we added a statement that was kind of implied before, I guess, but we wanted to be sure that it was stated in the manual. The preferred method of flagging is to have two flaggers positively controlling traffic going through the work zone. It never was stated that way in previous editions, and so we added a statement just to highlight that's probably the preferred method. There are other methods, like we just saw on the previous slide, where sometimes it's self-regulating. If the work distance is short enough, one flagger can possibly control traffic from both directions, but those are exceptions. The regular way of flagging, and probably the most common in practice, is to have a flagger operating, controlling traffic on both ends. Chapter 6D, this is the pedestrian provisions. We really reorganized and revised some of the provisions, tried to consolidate and reduce some of the redundancy that was possibly in there before. Tried to pull all the provisions for accessibility into 6D02, where all it was labeled accessibility considerations, but then they were kind of sprinkled throughout Chapter 6D. So we tried to consolidate and reorganize that. We also incorporated the new requirement, or a new requirement, for high visibility safety apparel. Most of you are probably familiar that there was a federal regulation, 23 CFR Part 634 was adopted in 2006 that required all workers within the right-of-way of federal aid highways to wear high visibility garments, and there was a compliance date of 2008 for that to happen. So all workers includes emergency responders, law enforcement personnel, anybody in addition to the normally considered workers, the construction workers, maintenance workers, those type of things. But there are more people covered by this regulation. The new MUTCD, the provisions from 23 CFR 634 have been adopted into the MUTCD, so now it applies to all roads open to public travel. Basically the same requirement. High visibility garment is defined as those garments meeting the ANSI 107-2004 standard for high visibility garments. There is an option now for law enforcement and first responders or emergency personnel to wear a comparable standard. It's the ANSI 207-2006 standard, or otherwise known, commonly referred to as the public safety vest standard. It's a little shorter in the front, allowing the emergency personnel access to their items that they wear on their belt, easy access to that. In addition, law enforcement personnel, they only have to wear high visibility garments when they're directing traffic or doing traffic related activities, making stops, doing police type activities. We certainly are not trying to increase their visibility where they would become a target for those persons wanting to do harm to them. So they only are required to wear them when they're doing traffic related functions. Firefighters also pointed out that to us that they often are in positions where they're working next to flames, high heat, hazardous materials, where the use of a high visibility garment over their other required safety equipment could create a hazard. So there's some exceptions then to this regulation for firefighters in certain conditions also as well. But other personnel, emergency responders, wreckers, tow truck operators, those type of personnel responding to incident scenes, media that are at an incident scene covering that, or any doing any other news story, if they're within the public right-of-way, they need to be wearing high visibility garments. Chapter 6E then is the flagger provisions, and the main change here is we incorporated the automated flagger assist devices. Those have been in interim approval status since 2004, I believe. There's two different types. One is a stop-slow paddle type of a piece of equipment, and the other has a two-color lens configuration. Not a traffic signal, but it does have a yellow-red signals or lenses, I guess, to project a message to the motors. These diagrams have been included in Chapter 6E. This is the Type 1, which is the stop-slow paddle type. It actually has a device that looks like a stop-slow paddle, same message, commonly understood by most motors. It does have some wait on stop and go on slow are signs, regulatory signs that go with these devices. There's provisions in there about how long the work area can be before you, where you allow one flagger to operate both devices. But these really are flagger assist devices. They're not to replace flaggers. They're only to provide a measure of safety where the flagger, the person that's doing the flagging, can actually be removed from the roadway and is in a safer position. These devices can have a gate arm that comes down for the stop condition. It's a should condition on the Type 1. It's a shall condition on the Type 2. The red-yellow lens is a little bit different piece of equipment, and these were designed and experimented with the gate arm on it, and so we made that a shall condition. They shall have, in the red, with the red indication, they shall have a gate arm down, much like a railroad grade crossing warning device. So those are now in the MUTCD. Both types have been put into the manual. One of the other things that was implied in past editions, but probably not stated, so we added a statement that said flaggers shall use a paddle, stop slow paddle, a flag, or an AFAD, not just hand signals, to conduct the business of flagging. There is an exception or exemption in there for emergency personnel at the scene of at an incident scene. Basically, the police, fire, those emergency responders are trained in proper hand signal, and people are used to seeing them possibly more, have the uniform, maybe a little bit more of authority figure, but they can direct traffic with just hand signals, but a flagger shall use a device for controlling traffic. Still, the red flag is allowed for emergency situations, but the preferred method certainly is with a stop slow paddle or an AFAD. If you remember, if you're familiar with the notice proposed amendments that we talked about, that we published, we had proposed that the staff on a stop slow paddle be a minimum of 7 foot. We got a lot of comments back on that proposal that having it that high in some conditions, high wind conditions, was impractical. It made it hard to handle, probably made it less safe. So we revised, listened to the comments, and revised the final rule to this wording: paddles should be placed on a rigid staff high enough to be seen by an approaching or stopped traffic. So it's a should condition. It's a guidance statement, but we took the 7 foot minimum out. But certainly they need to be high enough to be seen over a stopped vehicle. If the first vehicle in a line in a queue is stopped, then it makes it difficult to see the stop slow paddle. So somehow you have to make provisions for approaching motors to see the device. Moving on to Chapter 6F, a couple general things. We incorporated the minimum reflectivity standards into all signs used in temporary traffic control devices. That was the minimum reflectivity requirements were incorporated as revision 2 into the 2003 MUTCD. The same minimums do apply to all the devices used at night in temporary traffic control zones. We also filled in the values on Table 6F1, which is the sign sizes. In the 2003, if you look in Table 6F1, it just had sizes for conventional roads. We've added sizes for freeways and expressways, as well as minimum dimensions for those low volume and low speed, possibly roadways. We had proposed to delete 5 types of items from the manual, mainly because we did not, these are not really traffic control devices, at least 4 of them we did not feel met the definition of a traffic control device. We thought we should focus more on traffic control devices. We did get a lot of comments from people that basically the Part 6 of the MUTCD is a little different than the rest of the manual in some cases. This is what people use to develop temporary traffic control plans. If these devices are not in the manual, people may not think to use them. So based on that, we went ahead and eliminated 2. The steady burn electric lamp. There's still a steady burn warning light in the MUTCD, so what we're doing is basically saying you can still use an electric or a steady burn light, whether it's battery powered or electric, doesn't really matter. So we feel that one is kind of a no-brainer for deleting from the manual. Then vehicle arresting systems, again, probably one of those that we could have gone either way with. Those are used very rarely in temporary traffic control zones, so we removed it from this edition. We kept floodlights, crash cushions, and glare screens and the information that goes with those. So those are still in the MUTCD based on the comments that we did receive. In the future, we may, hopefully we're going to look at a little closer at trying to define what a traffic control device is, and then we may make some further revisions. But at this point, these devices or these items are still in the manual. We added, this is kind of where the Part 6 is catching up with field practice. A lot of agencies, I'm not sure most, but a lot of agencies have increased fines in work zones and a work zone speed limit. The work zone plaque, the G20-5AP, the P's for plaque, that's the terminology we use to identify the sign in the standard highway signs and markings book. But that plaque has been added, as well as the fines double or higher fines or a certain dollar amount fine for speeding. Those plaques and supplemental signs can be used, and they're shown here. These ones that are shown are the ones that have been added to the manual. The in-work zone speed limit sign certainly is probably the most used, in addition to the work zone plaque and maybe the fines double or higher fines. Center lane closed ahead symbol sign, the one on the right, the W9-3A, that was in the 2003 manual. Fairly low comprehension among road users of what that sign was supposed to convey. So we decided to drop it from the manual and go with the center lane closed ahead, the word message, rather than going with the symbol. So that goes from the symbol back to the word message. A new sign has been put in for new traffic pattern ahead. This one may provide good information depending on what type of traffic you have. If you have a lot of commuter traffic that's going through the project daily, and then all of a sudden you're changing phasing, changing staging, you may want to use this sign for a period of up to 2 weeks to let people know that there's going to be a traffic pattern or the pattern has changed. If you're having a lot of one-time traffic through traffic, this sign may not be as applicable or as meaningful to a lot of people. Another new symbol sign that we did add, based on, this is a Canadian design, been used in Canada quite a bit. We experimented with it. The comprehension was pretty high for road users, is the shoulder drop-off symbol sign and the plaque. In the notice proposed amendment, we had also proposed to use the same symbol with a different plaque, that plaque being uneven lanes. So we were kind of looking at using the same symbol for 2 different applications. Got comments, and we decided that that's really not what we wanted to do. So if you have uneven lanes, you should not use this symbol. You should use the word message of uneven lanes. Reserve this symbol sign for the shoulder drop-off. Okay, section 6F60, portable changeable message signs. All right, mentioned a little bit about some changes in Part 2. Changeable message signs has its own section now in Part 2, Section 2L. We incorporated many of the changes on design and application from 2L, or just referenced back. For portable changeable message signs, we referenced back to Section 2L. But there are some differences, and we didn't make a lot of changes on portables, but we do have some changes. One of the ones that I think is kind of key is we revised from a standard to a guidance how many phases can be used, the maximum number of phases that can be used on portable changeable message signs. In the 2003, there was a standard that you shall not use more than 2. We reduced that to a guidance. There may be situations, low-speed situations, urban, where road users can actually see 3 phases as they're approaching, a phase being basically a 3-line message. So with engineering guidance or engineering judgment, you may be able to use more than 2 in certain applications. 2 would be the preferred, and can assure most people are going to be able to at least see each phase as they're approaching. Kind of a nit that we, in section 6F71, we changed the terminology from aero panel to aero board. I think that's probably a more common term that's used in the industry. So the term, and hopefully we caught them all as we went through part 6, but we now refer to everything as an aero board. A new standard statement. This is not a new requirement, but again, we're trying to clarify it a little bit more. An aero board shall only be used to indicate a lane closure. And this is followed by a standard statement that says it shall not be used for lane shifts, but we continue to see them misused in some applications. So again, we're trying to clarify that provision. A new caution mode has been entered into the MUTCD, and this is the alternating diamond or the dancing diamond pattern. Much experimentation in western states looked at this. So in addition, now there's 3 different patterns that can be used for caution on an aero board. One of them is just one light in all 4 corners flashing off and on. The other is a horizontal bar, again with no arrow. You don't want to. What you want to keep away from here is providing any guidance information. You're just trying to get the road user's attention with the caution mode, and this alternating diamond pattern does do that. Through the experimentation, we're convinced that it's a good pattern, so we added it to the MUTCD. Added a section on temporary lane separators. There are situations in work zones and other applications actually, where a temporary lane separator such as those shown channelize traffic appropriately, and so we included those in the MUTCD. Section 6F78, temporary markings. Tried to clarify some of the meanings of permanent markings or pavement markings, temporary pavement markings, temporary markings. So we have a temporary marking section now that can be either temporary pavement markings or devices used to delineate a path through the temporary traffic control zone when the permanent markings are either removed or obliterated during work activities. So there are times when even temporary pavement markings may not be suitable. So then you're allowed to use devices to delineate the path and provide the positive guidance that road users are needing to get through the work zone safely. They should not be left in place longer than 14 days, and there are some exceptions to this. So if section 6F77 is still pavement markings, 78 is temporary markings. You should probably review those 2 sections. There have been some changes in it. 6F79 then is temporary raised pavement markers. Again, trying to make these more consistent with those temporary raised pavement markers in Part 3. Some of the colors and patterns can substitute for regular markings. They can be used for replicating a solid line. Again, the 14-day requirement should be followed in there. Preemption of temporary traffic signals in temporary traffic control zones. If you put a temporary signal or a portable signal within 200 feet of a railroad grade crossing, and there's vehicles queuing across the tracks, then you need to get those vehicles off the tracks in the event that a train is approaching. So you have to either have them interconnected through a preemption cycle or possibly station flaggers at the crossing to be sure that people are not queuing across the tracks and stopping on the tracks. 6F87, we are approving orange rumble strips through some experimentation, I believe in Kansas. We're concerned about different pavement markings and different patterns and colors being transverse across the pavement. We're wanting to see how motorists reacted to them or road users reacted to them. The orange and the black were colors that were acceptable. They did not cause any adverse reactions by motorists. They got the message across, so we approved the orange and black this time and put it in the manual. Again, in Chapter 6G then, we did talk again about the planned special events and how you should develop a temporary traffic control for those. 6H is the typical applications. One of the statements that we added was, what is a typical application? Is it guidance, standard, options, Just what does it mean? We've tried to clarify that with, except for the notes, the information in the typical applications can generally be regarded as guidance. So the TAs are guidance. Now some of the notes have standards in them, and a standard in a TA is still a standard. But in general, the diagrams should be considered as guidance. Some of the notes have been revised to hopefully improve consistency through the notes through all the TAs. Specifically, we removed the road closed sign from the TA7. This road, while the actual physical roadway that the people are used to traveling on is closed, the road itself is still open with the diversionary route, the temporary diversion route. So we removed the road closed sign from that typical application, and then made some changes for freeways. The main change is that an arrow board shall be required for all freeway lane closures, and a separate arrow board is required for each lane closure. So, obviously one is required for a single lane closure, 2 for a 2-lane, 3 for a 3. You get the picture, hopefully. And then 6I. One of the other things we had proposed in the NPA was to reverse the order of section 6H and 6I. So the 6I is a temporary traffic control for incident scenes. It's kind of buried behind the typical applications, and we were concerned that people would overlook it. It's only 5 or 6 pages. So we wanted to move it in front of the typical applications. As it turns out, the emergency responders have already picked up on Chapter 6I, and the I to them means incidents. So it made sense to leave it as 6I, so we did not reverse the order of those. So it's still 6H is typical applications, 6I is incident scenes. We did add some information concerning how you should park. Emergency responding vehicle, safe position is defined now. That's a term that is used by the emergency response community quite a bit. And so that is in the MUTCD now and is applied in Part 6I. We added a reference to the incident command system. That is something that emergency responders are very familiar with. There is a structure at each incident scene as to who's in charge, I guess, and the incident command system is to be followed. So that is in the Part 6I as a support statement. Again, all on-scene responders, news media should wear high visibility apparel. We added that for emphasis, a little bit of duplication for emphasis. And then we also added a statement about light sticks can be used in lieu of flares in some applications. They're in, I guess, some areas where fire is a hazard. You may not want to light up a flare, so they use light sticks to, again, you're providing guidance information with those devices. So that's the main changes that we have in Part 6. There are some others. I highlighted the ones I thought were most critical. So at this point, I think we're ready to handle questions. Our contact information, Harz and myself, is on the screen now. If you have questions after this, feel free to give us a call. But I believe we may have some questions that have already been submitted that we will respond to if we can.
Good, yes. We do have a number of questions for you, and we'll just have you both up there to answer them, depending on how they work. First question states, I understand parking lots are not subject to the MUTCD, but are the drives leading to them from the street subject to the new rules? And what are the specs on this issue?
You're right, the parking lots are not subject to either. The parking lots are not, MUTCD don't apply to parking lots, and the driving aisles within the parking lots are not also included. But the roads leading to the parking lots, the MUTCD does apply. Was that the question?
Yep, I think that's it. One question's asked, where can they get a copy of the new 2009 MUTCD? That's
a good question. And I probably should have put our website address, but I'll just give it to you. It's mutcd.fhwa.dot.gov. That's our website address. There is no www. So you can go to that website and you can download the copy of the MUTCD. We have a lot of other information. We also have it's a very extensive PowerPoint presentation where you can download with the speaker notes. But Federal Highway is not providing the hard copies. If you want to purchase the hard copy of the MUTCDs, there are a number of entities that will be providing those. They are in the process of printing it. And those are ETSA, it's a ATSSA, ETSA, ITE, Institute of Transportation Engineers, ASTO, as well as IMSA. It's Institute of Municipal Signal Association, I'm not sure, but IMSA. So those are the 4 entities who will be providing the hard copies.
And we might add, if people go to the Works on Clearinghouse website, worksonsafety.org, all of those providers and links to their sites are provided there as well. So.
But if you just want the online copy, PDF or HTML version, you can get it from our website.
Earlier on, you were talking a bit about special provisions for low-volume roads. We had several listeners question, how do you define a low-volume road?
Okay, do we have definition?
Yeah, it's 400 vehicles a day or less.
Yeah, so it's a 400 vehicles a day or less.
It's in Part 5. That information is contained in Part 5, what the definition is.
Very good. The next question. The 2009 MUTCD deleted the language, this is regarding school signings, so that's important. Deleted the language, whichever is encountered first, with regard to the location of school speed limit signs in reference to school property line or the crosswalk. Is this now left open to engineering judgment with regard to where to install the school speed limit sign? The whichever is encountered first language, I guess they believe, created excessive long zones. Any information on that?
I think that we did a lot of reorganization of that part. There were a lot of confusion. So what we have done, we have consolidated a lot of language, and I would encourage you to look at the diagrams. We kind of figured that a lot of these things which we wanted to, we couldn't get it in the words, so we are providing a lot of information, and there are a lot of very good figures and diagrams. So I would encourage you to look at those diagrams, and if you still have a confusion, send us an email or give us a call.
Okay. Next question, I think we kind of answered it earlier. It said they've seen pocket guides and summaries of work zone treatments in a small format and wonder if these are going to be provided for the new manual. I assume, again, you were not going to do that. You just have what's on the website and then look to these other providers for the pocket guides.
Right, and also in past we have done some brochures about the signs and markings. We still plan to do that, revise our brochures, but it's going to take some time. So for a while, there's not going to be any brochures from Federal Highway at least.
For Part 6, a lot of those pocket guides were developed and distributed by the LTAP centers for local agencies. They had a lot of those. Also, some large utility companies and things like that have developed them based on the typical applications and the information in Part 6, but they've made it in a smaller version for their crews to carry in their vehicles.
And also, some entities just print the Part 6 and they sell it separately.
All right, next question regards law enforcement and the high visibility vests. And the question is, if the police officers on the side of the road doing radar, speed enforcement, maybe HOV enforcement for several hours, is he or she required to wear a vest because they're in close proximity to traffic?
They are not required to, because what they're doing at that time, that they are doing the law enforcement responsibility. So anytime the police officer is in law enforcement responsibility, they don't have to wear high visibility garment. Only when they are controlling traffic, then they have to wear the high vis garment. Ken, you want to add anything?
No.
Okay.
And so let me just give a hypothetical here. There's an incident. You have a crash or something, so there's some incident management going on. And you have law enforcement there that are documenting the scene, but also law enforcement that are trying to guide traffic past the scene. With that circumstance, you'd have some being required to wear it that are doing traffic control and others not?
Oh, well, in that situation, when law enforcement are doing the crash investigations, or the law enforcement officers who are controlling the traffic, they are required to wear the high vis garment.
All right. A question about these PowerPoint presentations and their availability. I can answer part of that, but we would typically post these on the Works on Clearinghouse website next to the video. This is all archived so people can watch it later. Again, on your website, I believe a number of these PowerPoints are available, correct?
Yes, we have a master PowerPoint presentation on our website, and that presentation covers all different parts, from introduction to all the way to the part 8 and 9. And it also has speaker notes. You can download those presentations and you can use it for your use.
Okay, in the section regarding high visibility garments, The question is the new high visibility vest still an ANSI Class 2, or is that different from the Class 2 that's been previously referenced in the manual?
The MUTCD references the ANSI 107-2004 standard and allows either the Class 2 or 3 garment to be used to meet the regulation. The decision on whether the person should wear a Class 2 or 3 is left to the agency or the company that is providing the equipment. And there's some general guidance in the ANSI standards, but really, it depends on the traffic conditions and close proximity to traffic and whatever else is going on, whether you go with 2 or 3. There's some guidance statements that flaggers should wear Class 3 garments at night, that type of thing. Other workers, anytime you're working at night, Class 3 would be certainly the preferred alternative, but it's not required.
So just to kind of summarize, a Class 1 vest is never acceptable. A Class 2 is the minimum, it's the shall, and a Class 3 is an option in certain circumstances, is a should.
Yes.
Okay. Very good. Question here. Why are the stop slow flags no longer permitted?
A stop slow flag. I'm not sure what. A stop slow paddle is still permitted, and flags are only used in emergency situations. I'm not familiar with a stop slow flag, I guess. The stop slow paddle, the normal, hard back material, retroreflective faces on both sides. One says stop, one slow. Those still are allowed. I'm not familiar with the stop slow flag, so I'm not sure what. It would not be. I wouldn't think that would have been allowed for a long time, but maybe it has.
Very good. With regard to steady burning electric lamps and those that were allowed and not allowed, a little more clarification on what's the difference between what's allowed and what's not allowed.
Steady burn lamps, steady burn warning lamps are still allowed. Whether it's battery operated or electric powered, it's irrelevant. What the motorist sees, what the road user sees, is a steady burn warning lamp. And so both was in there before, a steady burn electric and a steady burn warning lamp. And we didn't see the need to duplicate the steady burn electric. It's still acceptable. It would just be considered a steady burn warning lamp. And that's still in the manual.
All right. I would assume this is regarding engineering guidance. Can you define what engineering guidance is? What does that mean?
There is engineering judgment and there is engineering study. Those terms are defined in the MUTCD definition. If you go to the definition section, the definitions for those particular terms are provided in the introduction. Engineering judgment, I think the key decision is that the way we define engineering study is that it's a documented study done in the supervision of an engineer. I think there's a pretty good definition, detailed definitions provided in the introduction part. So I would encourage you to look at it.
I may have used that term, but I should.
Yeah, there is those.
Engineering guidance is not a term in the manual.
Okay. Question regarding the sign manual. When will the accompanying sign manual be updated and introduced?
We are working on standard highway sign and marking books. Our goal is to get that book done in this calendar year. But we understand and we can appreciate that the practitioners are looking for the information. So we'll do the phased release. As we have that information available, we'll start putting that on our website. But all the information in the complete standard highway signs and marking book, we are hoping to get it done by end of this year.
Very good. Next question that we have regards the new sign that was adopted from Canada that shows the shoulder drop-off. The question is if your drop-off is on the left-hand side of the road, do you mirror that sign? Is there any different guidance on that?
Yes, you should mirror for the left. If the drop-off's on the left, you'd want the mirror image of that sign.
Very good. Well, that is all the questions that I'm showing at this time. And so, again, we'll remind folks, if they do have additional questions, the site will remain open for a few minutes. You can go ahead and post those questions to the website, and we'll provide them to Federal Highway, and they will answer those questions. And again, they will be posted on the Work Zone Clearinghouse site with regards to the same place as this presentation. Also, this presentation has been videotaped and archived. It will be available along with the PowerPoint PDF on the website within about 24 hours. And so we hope you will take advantage and watch that, or if you've had information, want to go back and review, or pass this to others who have not had a chance to see the presentation, it will be there. Again, just a reminder, we would ask that if you are viewing this presentation and there's multiple people in the site, in the room, please forward that information to us at the address that's on the screen. And secondly, if you would like to receive professional development hours for attending this session, you may also do that. There's an electronic form, and a link is provided for that you can go to. And so without any further ado, we thank both of you, Ken and Hari, for joining us today, and thank all of you for participating in the webinar, and we hope you'll come back soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you.